Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Goosebumps story time. I am back with the abominable snowman of Pasadena, starting at chapter 8. How have you guys been? How has your week been? Did you go to the theaters, see any new horror movies, reading any horror books? I would love some horror book recommendations because I've got something else cooking, but also it's Summerween. I want to read some campy slashers. Um, yeah, let me know in the comments how everyone's doing. Welcome back. I'm here wearing another one of my Final Girl Fitness designs. There we go. Super cute. The silhouette. I really like that one. Yeah, I've got more designs and stuff coming as well. You can find the clothing in the link below at Slayboy Haunted Mansion, my Etsy. It's all about staying strong, staying alive, and making it all the way to sunrise, not shrinking ourselves, nothing like that. We want to feel strong, feel confident, feel alert, and know that we can take care of ourselves in any situation, even a life-threatening one. But yeah, back here with the abominable snowman in Pasadena. As I said, I'm going to get started with chapter 8. Let me know if you're reading along with me also. I know previously some of you guys got the book yourself to read along with me, which is super fun. It's kind of like a spooky book club, which hints I've got something like that cooking in the works coming up soon. But yeah, let's get into it. So chapter 8. Smack. Bullseye. I hit Nicole in the middle of her backpack with a snowball. Dad, Nicole cried. Jordan hit me with a snowball. Dad had his camera in front of his face, clicking away as usual. Good for you, Nicole, he said absently. Nicole rolled her eyes. Then she ripped off my ski cap. She stuffed it with snow and smushed it on top of my head. Snow trickled down my face. The cold burned my skin. At first I thought snow was cool. I could mush it up in my hand to make snowballs, fall down in it without getting hurt, put it on my tongue and let it melt into water. But I was beginning to feel the cold. My toes and fingers were getting numb. We had already walked 2 miles out of town, and when I looked back, I couldn't see it. I could only see snow and sky. Only 8 more miles to the cabin, I thought, wriggling my fingers inside my mittens. 8 more miles. It was going to take forever. And all around us, nothing but snow. Miles and miles and miles of it. Dad and Arthur trudged beside the dog sled. Arthur had brought along 4 Alaskan Huskies, Binko, Rocky, Tintin, and Nicole's favorite, Lars. They pulled Dad's big trunk and the other supplies in a long, narrow sled. Nicole and I each carried a backpack filled with emergency food and other supplies. Just in case, Dad said. In case of what? I wondered. In case we get lost? In case the dogs run away with the sled? In case the abominable snowman captures us? Dad snapped pictures of the dogs, of us, of Arthur, of the snow. Nicole threw herself backwards into a snowdrift. Look, an angel, she cried, waving her arms up and down. She jumped up and we checked out the snow angel. Cool, I admitted. I lay on my back to make one too. When Nicole came closer to inspect it, I whopped her with a snowball. Hey, she cried. I'm going to get you for that. I leaped up and darted away. The deep snow crunched under my shoes. Nicole ran after me. We raced ahead of the dog sled. Be careful, kids, Dad called after us. Stay out of trouble. I stumbled in the snow. Nicole pounced on me. I wriggled free and bolted away. What kind of trouble could we get into? I thought as my feet crunched along. There's nothing but snow for miles around. We couldn't even get lost out here. I turned around and ran backwards, waving at Nicole. Try and catch me, Miss Factoid, I teased. Name-calling is so immature, she yelled, chasing after me. Then she stopped and pointed behind me. Jordan, look out! Hey, I'm not falling for that old trick, I called back. I skipped backwards through the snow. I didn't want to take my eyes off her, in case she planned to pelt me with snowballs. "Jordan, I mean it," she screamed. "Stop." Chapter 9. Thud. I landed hard on my back in a pile of snow. "Ugh," I grunted, stunned. I struggled to catch my breath. Then I stared around me. I had fallen down some kind of deep crevice. I sat shivering in a pile of snow, surrounded by narrow cliffs of bluish ice and rock. I stood and looked up. The opening of the crevice was at least 20 feet above me. Frantically, I clutched at the icy walls. I grabbed onto a jutting rock and fumbled for a foothold, hoping to climb out. I hoisted myself up a couple of feet. Then my hand slipped and I slid back to the bottom. I tried again. The ice was too slick. How would I ever get out of here? Where were Dad and Nicole? I tried to warm my cheeks with my mittens. Why don't they come to get me? I'm going to freeze down here. Nicole's face appeared at the top of the crevice. I'd never been so happy to see her in my life. "Jordan, are you all right?" "Get me out of here," I shouted. "Don't worry," Nicole assured me. "Dad's coming." I leaned against the pit wall. The sunlight didn't reach the bottom. My toes felt ready to break off. They were so cold. I jumped up and down to keep warm. A few minutes later, I heard Dad's voice. "Jordan, are you hurt?" "No, Dad," I called up to him. He, Nicole, and Arthur all stared down at me from above. "Arthur is going to lower a rope down to you," Dad instructed. "Hold onto it and we'll hoist you out of there." I stepped aside as Arthur tossed one end of the knotted rope into the crevice. I clutched the rope with my mittened hands. Arthur shouted, "Heave!" Dad and Arthur tugged on the rope. I planted my feet in footholds in the ice, bracing myself against the side of the crevice. The rope slipped out of my hands, and I clutched it tighter. "Hold on, Jordan," Dad called. They pulled me again. My arms felt heavy as if they were going to be yanked out of their sockets. "Ow!" I cried. "Careful!" Slowly they hoisted me to the top of the crevice. I wasn't much help. My feet kept slipping on the icy walls. Dad and Arthur each took one of my hands and dragged me out of the pit. I lay on the snow, trying to catch my breath. Dad tested my arms and legs for sprains and breaks. "You're sure you're all right?" he asked. I nodded. "It was a mistake to haul kids along," Arthur grumbled. "The snow is not as solid as it looks, you know. If we hadn't seen you fall, we never would have found you." "We've got to be more careful," Dad agreed. "I want you both to stick close to the sled." He leaned over the side of the crevice and snapped a picture. I stood up and brushed the snow from the seat of my pants. "I'll be careful from now on," I promised. "Good," Dad said. "We'd better push on," Arthur said. We started walking again across the snow. I gave Nicole a shove once in a while and she shoved me back, but we were quieter now. Neither of us wanted to end up frozen to death at the bottom of a snow hole. Dad snapped away as we walked. "How much farther to the cabin?" he asked Arthur. "Another couple of minutes," Arthur replied. He pointed to a steep mountain of snow in the distance. "See that snow rise about 10 miles off? That's where the monster was last spotted." The abominable snowman had been seen by that snow rise, I thought. Where was he now? Could he see us coming? Was he hiding somewhere, watching us? I kept my eyes on the snow rise as we walked. It seemed to grow bigger as we came closer to it. The snow rise was dotted with pine trees and boulders. After about an hour, a tiny brown speck appeared a mile or so away. "That's the abandoned musher's cabin, where we'll stop for the night," Dad explained. He rubbed his gloves together and added, "It sure will be nice to sit by a roaring fire." I clapped my mittens together to keep the blood flowing through my hands. "I can't wait," I agreed. "It must be minus 2,000 degrees out here." "Actually, it's minus 10, Nicole stated. "At least, that's the average temperature for this area at this time of year." "Thank you, weather girl," I joked. "And now for sports. Arthur?" Arthur frowned into his beard. I guess he didn't get the joke. He fell behind us a little to check the back of the sled. Dad turned around to snap Arthur's picture. "When we get to the musher's cabin, I'll take a few more scenery photos," Dad said as he changed his film. "Maybe I'll photograph the cabin too. Then we'll all turn in. We have a big day tomorrow." By the time we reached the cabin, it was almost 8 o'clock at night. "Took us too long to get here," Arthur grumbled. "We left town after lunch. It should have taken us about 5 hours. The kids having accidents and all is slowing us down." Dad stood a few feet away from him, shooting a portrait of Arthur while he talked. "Mr. Blake, did you hear me?" Arthur growled. "Stop taking my picture." "What?" Dad said, letting his camera drop to his chest. "Oh, yeah, the kids. Bet they're hungry." I explored the musher's cabin. It didn't take long. The tiny wooden shack was empty except for an old wood-burning stove and a couple of broken-down cots. "Why is the cabin so empty?" Nicole asked. "Mushers don't stop here anymore," Arthur explained. "They're afraid of the monster." I didn't like the sound of that. I glanced at Nicole, and she rolled her eyes. Arthur bedded the dogs in a lean-to outside the cabin. The lean-to was a shed built against the back cabin wall. It was filled with straw for the dogs to sleep on. I spotted a rusty old dog sled propped in a corner. Then Arthur lit a fire and began to fix some supper. "Tomorrow, we'll search for this so-called monster," Dad announced. "Everybody get a good night's sleep." After supper, we crawled into our sleeping bags. I lay awake for a long time, listening to the howling of the wind outside, listening for the thudding footsteps of an abominable snowman. "Nicole, get off of me!" She rolled over in her sleeping bag and jabbed her elbow into my ribs. I knocked her arm away and snuggled deeper inside in my own toasty, warm sleeping bag. Nicole opened her eyes. Bright morning sunshine streamed into the cabin. "I'll be back in a few minutes to fix breakfast, kids," Dad said. He sat in a chair, lacing up his snow boots. "First, I'm going out to check on the dogs. Arthur went out to feed them a few minutes ago." He bundled up and stepped outside. I rubbed my nose. It was so cold. The fire in the stove had gone out during the night, and no one had relit it yet. I forced myself to climb out of my sleeping bag and start pulling on clothes. Nicole began dressing too. "Do you think there's a hot shower in this dump?" I wondered aloud. Nicole smirked at me. "You know perfectly well there's no hot shower, Jordan." "Oh wow, this is incredible," I heard Dad shout from outside. I jammed my feet into my boots and raced out the door. Nicole pushed right behind me. Dad stood at the edge of the musher's cabin, pointing in shock at the ground. I gazed down and saw deep footprints in the snow. Huge footprints, enormous footprints. So big that only a monster could have made them. Chapter 10. "Unbelievable," Dad murmured, staring at the snow. Arthur hurried over from the lean-to. He stopped when he saw the prints. "No," he cried. "He was here." His ruddy face grew pale. His jaw trembled with terror. "We've got to get away from here, now," he said to Dad in a low, frightened voice. Dad tried to calm him down. "Hold on a minute, let's not jump to conclusions." "We're in terrible danger," Arthur insisted. "The monster is nearby. He'll rip us all to shreds." Nicole knelt in the snow, studying the footprints. "Do you think they're real?" she asked. "Real, abominable snowman footprints?" "She thinks they're real," I thought. "She believes." Dad knelt beside her. "They look pretty real to me." Then I saw a light glimmer in his eyes. He lifted his head and squinted at me suspiciously. I backed away. "Jordan!" Nicole cried in an accusing voice. I couldn't help it. I started laughing. Dad shook his head. "Jordan, I should have known." "What?" Arthur looked confused and then angry. "You mean the kid made these prints? It's a joke?" "I'm afraid so, Arthur," Dad sighed. Arthur scowled at me. Beneath his beard, his face reddened to the color of a slab of raw steak. I cowered. I couldn't help it. Arthur scared me. He sure didn't like kids, especially not kids who play jokes. "I've got work to do," Arthur muttered. He turned and stomped away through the snow. "Jordan, you crumb," Nicole said. "When did you do it?" "I woke up early this morning and sneaked out," I admitted. "You were all sleeping. I carved the footprints over my own prints with my mittens. Then I stepped in the prints on my way back to cover my tracks." "You believed," I added, jabbing a finger at Nicole. "For a minute there, you believed in the snow monster." "I did not," Nicole protested. "Yes, you did. I got you to believe." I glanced from Nicole's peevish face to Dad's stern one. "Don't you think it's funny?" I asked. "It's just a joke." Usually Dad liked my jokes, but not this time. "Jordan, we're not at home in Pasadena now. We're out in the middle of nowhere, the wilds of Alaska. Things could get very dangerous. You saw that yesterday when you fell down the crevice." I nodded and hung my head. "I'm serious, Jordan," Dad warned me. "No more practical jokes. I'm here to work, and I don't want anything to happen to you or Nicole or any of us. Understood?" "Yes, Dad." No one said anything for a minute. Then Dad patted me on the back. "Okay then, let's go inside and get some breakfast." Arthur turned to the cabin a few minutes later. He stamped the snow off his boots, glaring at me. "You think you're funny," he muttered, "but wait till you see the snowman. Will you be laughing then?" I swallowed hard. The answer to his question was no. Definitely no. Chapter 11. After breakfast, we hitched the dogs to the sled and set off for the snow rise. Arthur wouldn't talk to me and would hardly look at me. I guess he was angry about my joke. Everybody else has forgiven me, I thought. Why won't he? Nicole and I walked at the front of the sled with the dogs. Behind me, I heard Dad's camera clicking furiously. I knew that meant he'd found something good to photograph. I turned around. A large herd of elk moved towards us, toward the snow rise, and we stopped to watch them. "Look at them," Dad whispered. "Amazing." He quickly loaded new film into his camera and started snapping away again. The elk calmly picked their way across the snow, antlers high, and they stopped to eat a stand of bushes. Arthur pulled back the rein on the lead sled dog to keep him from barking. Suddenly, one elk lifted its head. It seemed to sense something. The other elk tensed up too. Then they turned and began to gallop away across the tundra. Their hooves thundered under the snow. Dad let his camera fall against his chest. "That's strange," he said. "I wonder what happened." "Something scared them," Arthur said grimly. "It wasn't us, and it wasn't the dogs." Dad scanned the horizon. What was it then? We all waited for Arthur's answer, but he only said, "We ought to turn around and head back to town right now." "We're not going back," Dad insisted, "not after coming all this way." Arthur stared at him. "Are you going to take my advice or not?" "No," Dad replied. "I've got a job to do here, and I've hired you to do a job. We're not going back without a good reason." "We've got a good reason," Arthur insisted. "Only you won't see it that way." "Push ahead," Dad ordered. Arthur frowned and shouted, "Mush," to the dogs. The sled began to move. We followed it, on toward the snow rise. Nicole walked a few feet ahead of me, and I picked up a pile of snow and patted it into a ball. But then I thought I better not throw it. No one seemed to be in the mood for snowball fights. We marched through the snow for a couple of hours. I slipped off my mittens and wiggled my fingers. Frost kept collecting on my upper lip, and I wiped it away. We reached a stand of pine trees at the base of the snow rise. Suddenly, the dogs stopped short. They began to bark. "Mush!" Arthur shouted. The dogs refused to go further. Nicole ran up to her favorite dog, Lars. "What is it, Lars? What's the matter?" Lars howled. "What's wrong with them?" Dad asked Arthur. Arthur's face paled again. His hands shook. He stared intently into the trees, squinting into the brightness. "Something's frightened the dogs," he said. "Look how their fur stands on end." I patted Lars. It was true. His fur stood straight up. The dog growled. Not much scares these dogs, Arthur said. Whatever it is, it's scaring them. Bad. The dogs all howled. Nicole huddled close to Dad. There's something dangerous on that snow rise, Arthur said. Something dangerous and very, very near. Chapter 12. I'm going to stop here at chapter 12, and I will be back again soon in a week or so. I really hope you're enjoying it so far. We're almost halfway through. I'm really interested to see where this one is going. This is one that I actually haven't read before this, so if this is your first time hearing it, this is my first time reading it also. But it's definitely got my attention. So thank you for listening with me or reading along with me, and I'll see you again soon, everyone. Bye. Have a good night.